If you all know, this is a very famous date in history. I don't know if you realize today is the 50th anniversary of the Charles Manson murders.
Oh, wow.
And also today is the 66th anniversary of a great man, handsome, intelligent, worldly, man about town, but enough about me. Richie Sainer turned 66 years old right over there. So give him a round of applause, please, everybody. I want to tell you a little bit about Management One. We help retailers make more money. Essentially, we've been around for 33 years. We do it without any kind of contracts, long-term commitments. If you don't think we can help you be more profitable, improve your cash flow, improve your sales, there's an exit ramp at the end of every month that you don't have to continue to pay us. The fact of the matter is that what we do actually works, and it is important for all retailers to understand. If you like this presentation, you can go online to m1talks.com. Just fill in your information, particularly your email address, and we'll send you the presentation. Also, if you don't have a computer with you or a mobile device, you can come down and give me your business card with your email address on it, or any of those folks over there, and we'll be happy to get you the presentation before the end of the week. Okay. I always like starting out with this because and we love point of sale companies, right? We work with all the top point of sale companies in North America, but I always think that if you think your point of sale system is going to control your inventory, that's like expecting your bathroom scale to control your weight. By the way, I love this. Thank you, Nico, for that one, by the way. Maybe don't order fries next time. And essentially that is true. It collects data, it looks in the rearview mirror, but doesn't really help you be more profitable in a fundamental sense. So before I get started, I just have to add this. Our friend Barney's declared bankruptcy this week. I actually had this slide, Nico made this slide for me, and I had to change it because I had just getting ready to declare bankruptcy, so they did. So you all shopped at Barney's? Well, Barney's had a little bit of a problem with their flagship Manhattan store. I don't know if you read about this, but the landlord of the store increased their monthly rents. Do you know how much they were paying in monthly rents? Anybody have any idea what Barney's was paying in rent in 2018 and what they're paying now in 2019 a month? Give me a number. You read the article, you cheater. It's 1.7 million a month, and they've now gone to 2.9. They had a $1.2 million a month rent increase, and they were teetering. That kind of pushed them over, and that's why all our clients at Management One, blatant sales pitch here right now, everybody. But we have to know what your overhead is. We have to know what your rent is. We need to know what's your monthly nut, because we only plan to make money and enough inventory to make money. And that's the kind of example, extreme as it may be, on why we do that. So I want to talk about initially this whole concept of that everybody in this room has the ability to succeed. Literally, the world is your oyster. I love to talk about the fact that the best thing about retail to me is that, and it's a metaphor, but it's true, generally speaking, a problem on Monday in retail can be solved on Tuesday. You're in a business where you can turn things around very quickly if you know what you're doing, because you have to focus on the variables of your business. And the variables are how much knowledge you have, how much preparation do you do, and how much planning do you do. These are all variables in your business that you can do and can make a big difference in terms of your cash flow and bottom line. Success-oriented retailers love learning, and they're not afraid to make a mistake. I can't tell you how important those two traits are for successful retailers today. When we look at our client base, and we actually went through and did a study, and what they all have in common. They're different sizes, different shapes, different retail verticals, but we came down to two things that every one of our, and we have over 1,000 clients, every one of our successful clients had. They love learning, and they don't fear failure. And here's another thing they do is they think differently. Now, what do I mean by think differently? Well, a really good example of this, I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and in Mall of America, just at a pop-up shop called Good American. Are you familiar with this e-commerce business that was started by Emma Grevy and Khloe Kardashian? Well, they're starting to open stores. They're super, super successful. And what they've done, Emma Grevy is a size 2. She's a size 2, but I think she knows more about large-sized women, bigger women, than anybody else in retail. And so this is what they call this is a size-inclusive business. The size, and mostly denim jean oriented. So you should go on their website. The sizes they carry are 00 up to 24. And they are growing very, very quickly. So one of the things that they did that was unique, think differently, is they added a size 15. By the way, the average woman in the United States is a size 16, not a 10. The average woman is 16 in the United States. But they decided they were going to add a tweener size 15. Why did they do that? Because they did the research and they found that the two most returned sizes in women's wear are 14 and 16. And they thought there must be a chasm of difference between those two sizes. So they came up with a size 15, and now it's their number 4 on their website, best-selling size they have. Why do I bring this up? Because I think it is a great example of a retailer thinking differently today about their business and not doing it the same way. So I want to know about everybody here in the audience, so I need you to do something for me, okay? Put down your coffee, everybody get ready. All right, here's what I want you to do. Clasp your hands. Clasp your hands. All right, now clasp your, everybody's got to clasp their hands. Clasp your hands, girls, okay? All right. Look down and see which thumb is on the top. Here's why. Look, if your right thumb from your right hand is on the top, you know what that makes you? A thinker. You're a thinker. You're very, very smart. You like numbers. You understand the whole concept of financials and inventory management and turnover. Okay, who had their left thumb up? Raise your hands. You guys are all sexier. I'm just telling you what science tells me, that's all. Actually, on the left hand, if your left thumb is up, you are more artistic. You like the arts. You're more creative. And by the way, if you do the same thing when you fold your arms too, it's the same thing also. And it's an interesting study of who people are, because we're all different. All retailers are different. We have clients who have the right thumb up, we have clients with the left thumb up, and it doesn't matter, because you can be successful in the business no matter who you are. Retail, I always say, is not brain surgery. It's actually twice as hard. Retail is super, super hard. Do you ever think about the fact that, you as retailers, if you're an independent businesswoman or man, you work long hours, you have to work holidays, for a lot of retailers, independent retailers, the money is just okay. They might be able to make more money if they work for somebody else, right? The customers all think you're rich. They all think you're loaded. And your markup is 80% on everything. That's actually true. They do think that. And you never can be right with inventory. You're in a business that it's impossible to be 100% accurate with inventory. You either bought a little bit too much or a little bit too little. You bought too much, you had to mark it down, or worse, carry it over. Or you didn't buy enough and you hit yourself on the forehead, go, I could have probably bought 5 times that one item and sold them all if I just would have known. You cannot be right with inventory. So, based on that, let's talk about what a 3-year picture for your business is. And I think this is really, really important, because you should all sit down and decide where you want to be 36 months from today. How big do you want to be? How much revenue do you want to be? How much profits do you want it to be? Am I going to be first in on new products and new vendors, or last in? Am I always looking for the newness that really drives traffic? Or am I just going to these trade shows and buying from the same people every time? Think about that, because this is very, very important. I was at a trade show last month, and I had a smallish store, not small, but she does about $500,000 in sales, came up to our trade booth and said, you know, I've owned the store for 15 years, and I've never made any money. And I go, 15? Well, the fact that you're still in business after 15 years means you're doing something right, okay? So let's look at the positive. But then let's talk about why is it that you are a $500,000 business in a smaller town of 8,000 people. The rent was $2,000 or $2,500 a month. So and she does $500,000. How is it that you cannot make money at that level? So I said, let's just draw out where you're at. $500,000 in business, let's say your profit is 50%, so $250,000. It's a good exercise for you all to do, by the way, too. So my profit is $250,000. That's after I pay for the inventory. Now my rent's $30,000, subtract. Her payroll was $100,000 a year, subtract. Everything else, by the way, generally speaking, on your income statement, everything else, which is advertising, credit card costs, and travel, and all the other miscellaneous stuff that's on your income statement, that usually, for retailers, you can check it out for yourself, that usually equals the rent. So I put in another $30,000 for that. So you have $30,000 rent, $30,000 expenses and miscellaneous, and you have salaries of $100,000. You have a $250,000 profit, and I just added up $160,000 in cash out. Where's the 90 grand? Where was the 90 grand? And she looked at me because she's never done this before. And she said, in my inventory? And I go, of course it is. Where else could it be? Unless you really forgot something that you gave me on your overhead. And you know what she said then is, I can't reduce my inventory because I don't want my store to look empty. Think about that statement. I don't want my store to look empty. Now this was a kitchen store, which means she does a lot of business in December and nobody's around in January. So you are now sacrificing $90,000 a year cash, which she has 3 little kids. In other words, you could put all 3 kids through a great college, and you're sacrificing that because you don't want to look empty. Think how silly that is. Think differently. Think positively. Everybody in this room, I'll bet you, is somewhat the same. We can pull more cash out if we think differently, if we do things better, do things smarter. First in, twice the size, revenue and profit. What makes your store special? I ask this all the time. What makes your store special is not because of your location. It's not because of the best customer service. It's not because of product presentation. Because none of those 3 things that are up there right now are measurable. None of them are measurable. You can't measure any of this. So what can you measure? What is possible to measure? The only thing you can measure is a process. The process that you use in everything you do in your store to grow your business and achieve the goals that you want to do. So when I talk about process, what do I mean? Well, what are you really strong at? I'm going to talk about 3 processes here that we need to be good at, by the way. Number 1, we have to know our measurements. We have to know our metrics. That's number 1. Number 2, we have to know how to get good people on the floor and how to keep good people on the floor, because without that we cannot be successful. And number 3 is marketing. How are we marketing our store? How are we branding our store? What is the messaging? Content is marketing. It's got to be compelling and it has to be authentic. Those 3 things are what I want to talk about for the next half hour. So let's talk about performance indicators. Now, a lot of people call them KPIs. They're metrics, they're KPIs, but they matter, because if you understand how to use key performance indicators in data, all you folks with your right thumb on top should know this. The people with the left thumb on top, I'll let you give a pass on this. But this is really, really important because they help you bring in more sales, they help you improve your cash flow, they help you be more efficient. And they are levers that if you pull those levers in your business, one way or the other, they will affect your bottom line and your core performance. Because retail is the reason why I asked everyone with the thumbs is because retail is a blend of art and science. And this is the science part. You know, how do pilots get to Las Vegas? I live in Minneapolis. I came here last night. How's he know where it is? You know, I'm always amazed at that. Well, he has GPS and all of that. But you know what else pilots do? They trust their instruments. And you have to trust your instruments too. You have to understand what instruments you need to be using to fly in your store, and you need to trust those to know where you're weak and where you're better at. Because metrics matter. Every good retail company that I know offer reward schemes for their employees. Because they know what gets measured gets changed, what gets rewarded gets done, and if you don't measure it, you can't change it, and if you don't reward it, it will not happen. So, I'm going to be controversial here for just a second. The most misleading metric in retail: cost of goods sold. Any accountants in the room? Any accountants? No accountants? Good, because I probably get a dart in my neck now in the next 5 minutes, right? Why is cost of goods sold, which every one of you have on your income statement, why is that metric misleading? It's misleading for the fact of what it says. It is your cost of the merchandise you sold, not what you bought. Exactly right. If you bought 20 items and 6 months later you sold 5, all at full price, on accounting, it would say you're doing great because your cost of goods sold is really great. But your cost of goods purchased stinks. And that's why you've got to understand that certain metrics are actually not that important for you to look at as retailers. Because the new financial reality today, everybody, is that cash is king and cash flow is everything. I've never known a retailer to go out of business because they had too much cash. Cash is still the most important metric you can have. So one of the things, what chews up cash in your store is inventory. And what really chews up cash in your store is old inventory. Old inventory. So I want you, this is your first homework assignment of this presentation. I want you to go back, go on your POS system, go on your scale, and I want you to find how much of your inventory in your store is over 6 months old. Just go back 6 months from today. It's August, so that's probably what, February, something like that? And see what's still there that you landed in February that now we're in August and you still haven't sold. You had to pay for it in March, but it is still there now in August, sitting there tying up capital. And if that is 20 to 30% of your overall inventory, you have a potential problem. I think it's a real problem, but if it's over 30%, if 30% of your asset base and inventory is stuff that you haven't sold in over 6 months, that's not a potential problem. That's a very real problem that needs to be addressed right away. That's a key metric. Inventory turnover is a key metric. Inventory turnover is the one metric that doesn't show up on your accounting statements because accounting doesn't measure time. How long does it take you to sell it? But inventory turnover is maybe the most consequential part of your business. Now, why is it consequential? Well, let me tell you why. Customers want to see new, not old. And you have to be rotating in and out of your business, new. And when it's wrong and you made a mistake, you shoot it dead on the spot, you kill it, half off, that's the first markdown, you get your money back, do it. Because everything in this business revolves around turnover. Now, how much turns, what's the right amount of turns? Well, in a very generic way, we did a study on this quite a few years ago, and we found that in the typical women's boutique, 90% of your sales come from inventory less than 10 weeks old. 90% less than 10 weeks old. So if we believe that, and it is true, then that's your shelf life, 10 weeks. not 6 months, 10 weeks. And if we know your shelf life is 10 weeks, generally speaking, then what turnover should we have? We have 52 weeks in a year. You want to sell it in 10 weeks. We should get 5 turns, right? 5 turns is the optimum. Now, what's that mean? You put your own numbers in, but I want you to judge your store against what is optimum. 5 turns means if your store has $500,000 in sales, you put your own numbers in. Your average retail inventory divided by 5 is 100,000, and if you have a 50% profit, the cost is 50,000. If you do 500,000 and you're in the women's fashion business, you should not carry more than $50,000 that costs worth of merchandise. That's where you should be. Now I was talking to a retailer in San Francisco recently, and they were very tight-lipped about their business. I said, well, can I ask you how much business you do? No. Can I ask you how much inventory you have? No. What was your margin? No. You know your no. Everything was no. But can you help me? And so I started making assumptions. I said, look, you're not going to tell me your sales. Whatever you do last year, write it down on a piece of paper, divide by 5, and then that's your retail inventory. Divide that by 2, and that's your cost inventory. And if you're at that number now, and it's mostly new goods, most of it's arrived in the last 2 or 3 months, then you're fine. You don't need my help. But if you're over that number and you've got a lot, if 30% of your inventory is oldish, we need to talk. If you're under that number, you don't have enough merchandise and you're missing sales because you don't have the right assortment. These are really easy metrics for you to do a diagnostic on your business, which will help you grow to be where you want to be over a 3-year plan. Very, very important. Let's talk about employees. This is the big one. Everybody talks about employees. How do you find good people, Paul? Where do you get them? How do we prospect? How do we hire? Where do you get fantastic people? Well, I think one of the mindsets that you have to get away from, and this is going to sound weird, but when you interview people that you really like, it's not about you. I think you have to think about them. Don't think about you. Think about what they're looking for if they're really, really good. Because it's all about creating a good fit. And that's ultimately what you want to do. Now, many retailers have told me that they have a referral program. If they have great existing employees, they must know other great people too, their friends. If they're fun and smart, they probably have fun and smart friends. So a referral program and reward employees who can refer their friends to. We actually had a client in a major university town who had and they were always complaining, where do I find good people? And we said, is there a theater department at the University of X? And they go, yeah. And I go, why don't you go, we should check them out. She hired one person that wanted to work and wanted to work retail. Super dynamic, super people person. The second year that employee was with her, she added personally $500,000 in sales. One employee because she thought outside the box and she went to a place maybe she didn't even know about in terms of hiring. But remember this, always look for people with people skills, because if you look for people with tech skills, when they're online, they're not dealing with people. So look for people with people skills, and then retention of talent. Once you've got somebody good, don't lose them. You know, losing talent, I think, indicates a problem within a store. If you've got good people and they're always leaving you, you have to look in the mirror and find out why they are leaving you. So one of the things that you need to do is stretch yourself. Now, I always think it's the simple things really, and how if you want to reward, I'll tell you a quick story. 2 or 3 years ago, a client came to me and said, Amy is doing a great job. She's buying all the jewelry. The jewelry business went from $30,000 a year to over $100,000 a year in 3 years. She's done such an amazing job. I don't know where I'd be without Amy. I want to reward her in some way. So Paul, you know the metrics. Should I use return on investment? Should I do sales increases? Should I use profit? Turnover, how should I reward her? I need to tie that into a metric. And you know what I told her? I don't think you tie it into any metric. You give her a check for what you think she has brought to this company. And you put it in a handwritten note, whether it's $1,000 or $1,500, whatever, I don't care what it is, and you handwrite that note, and you tell her how important she is to the company. Because ultimately, people love money, but you know what your employees like even more than money? Recognition. Telling somebody they did a good job is the breakfast of champions for retailers. So don't forget to do that. You know, one of the things that we do at Manage One is we seek out employees who share our values. And I would urge everybody in this room that write down the values of your company. What are your values? What do you believe in? What does your store stand for? Because we do that at Management One. And when we're interviewing people, we filter out candidates who don't fit our values. It's as simple as that. And a lot of things that a lot of people that we interview are always amazed at some of the things we tell them. Because when we know we want to hire somebody, we make sure they know we really want to hire somebody. We put ourselves in their shoes. Turn it around. Thinking about it from their perspective. You know, we started a policy about 5 years ago of unlimited vacation. They asked, what's your vacation policy? It's unlimited. You want to take a vacation? Take a vacation. You get sick, we're not counting your sick days. We've had one person take advantage of us. One. And we never lose employees. Because they know we're on their side. You know, sometimes you have to zig when everybody else is zagging to be successful and achieve a 3-year plan. That's why I say lenient return policies are more critical today than ever. Because most people aren't out there to try to really, take advantage of you. Most people are good. And so lenient return policies are very, very important today when more and more retailers are tightening them up. Okay, let's talk about branding. Does everybody understand the whole concept of branding? Because I'm going to give you some examples of really successful branding strategies. But essentially, branding is an image, creating an image about your business in the consumer's mind. So when they think of your store, they think of your brand. And it is ongoing and it is eternal. Part of the branding has to do with how your store looks. You ever go, who there's been in a Walmart? When you walk into a Walmart, what do you see the first thing? Soda machines. What are they selling for? 50 cents. Why do they do that? Why does Walmart stick these soda machines right at the beginning of every entrance and say 50 cents? That's right too, but the real reason is they're branding their store in your eyes that when you come in here, this is affordable. I can find stuff less expensive. That's why they do it. They're creating an image, and it's genius. You gotta remember that the average consumer, when they walk into a store, only goes through 50% of it. They don't see the other half of your store. And so you've really gotta get them right when they walk in. That's absolutely important. Yeti Coolers is absolutely fantastic. They're producing extremely well-made videos and photos and stories of these people who like the outdoors and they have money, and so that they can afford Yeti Coolers. It is a master stroke in branding, because the customer they want is the customer that's willing to spend top dollar on a cooler. The cheapest cooler you can get from Yeti, $199. Not cheap. Everything you do in your store with branding is about you. You should tell your story. Tell the story about you and why you started the business. Do you know that we were all told stories when we were young? And that whole idea of listening to a story has stayed with us even today. Because it actually, the scientists have measured it, it actually increases a chemical called oxytocin, which is a chemical that is trust, empathy, likability. When you tell the story about why you own the store, and what your purpose is, and what your values are, and what you believe in, and merchandise, like Yeti Coolers, tell the story, romance it. This is all part of the branding of your business in a positive way. This is Steven Singer Jewelers in Philadelphia. Anybody from Philly? No Philly people? Okay, well, a couple of years ago, my daughter lives in Philadelphia. My wife and I flew out there. On the way into downtown Philly, I see this big, literally billboard that says, "I hate Steven Singer." I'm thinking to myself, man, that was a bad breakup, right? I mean, this gal put on a billboard what a jerk this guy is, right? My daughter started laughing, and she said, "Dad, no, this guy's a jeweler. He's a jeweler here in Philadelphia, and this is a campaign that he's been running for like years." And so I was intrigued because it certainly got my attention. So I literally went online to see why all the hate for Steven, right? What's the whole point of this? Well, it was some story about a couple who bought a diamond ring before they got married. The husband bought his fiancée a diamond ring. 20 years later, he decided to surprise his wife on his 20th anniversary. Got her another diamond ring from Steven Singer Jewelers. And then that night, she was so thankful. They had a little bumba. And then 9 months later, out comes a little baby, and they're both in their 40s. They go back in the Steven Singer store, and they go. The wife goes, "Look what we have! It's all because of you, Steven." And the husband, of course, is like, "I hate Steven Singer. I'm going to get up at night now and feed the kid and the dirty diapers." That's the story. Do I think that story's true? I don't care. I don't care whether it's true or not, because it sure as heck got my attention. And it sure as heck is branding this retailer that you think about some fun little story like that get to the top of your mind. I cannot overestimate enough how important branding your store and telling your story. The National Roping Supply Company in Texas. David Isham started this business when he got out of college in Texas. He's from Decatur, Texas. And he wanted to be a retailer. And this was in the 80s. And so he bought this little Western store in Decatur's hometown on the main town of 8,000 people. And he liquidated the old inventory, he fixed up the interior, he bought new stuff, he had all kinds of new policies, and a $300,000 store, 3 or 4 years later, it was a $350,000 a year store. And David is an ambitious guy and smart. And it was like a Peggy Lee song, is that all there is? He's going, wait, am I going to spend the rest of my life in the store? And that's not what I want to do. So he thought about it. In Texas alone, every small town in Texas had a Phil's Western store, a David's Western store, a Johnny's Western store, a Richie's Western store. Everybody had a stupid named Western store. So he looked up and see if he could copyright a new brand. And he did. And he called his store in Decatur, Texas, that did $350,000 in revenue a year, the National Roping Supply Company, NRS. And it changed everything. This was way before online, but he was just started a catalog. The phone, and he changed the 800 number to 1-800-GO-ROPING. And it changed his business, it changed his life. Because now when customers all over the United States saw a National Roping Supply Company, it wasn't David's Western store in Decatur, Texas, it was national. And he changed everything. Today's over $100 million business. That's what I say, is that you guys can change everything from a problem on Monday to a solution on Tuesday if you think about your business in different ways. So where are you going to be in the next 3 years? One of the problems I think for too many retailers is that we don't think about where we're going to be in 3 years, and we don't lay out that plan. We just think about next season. What are we going to buy for next season? And boy, I'm going to look at vendor, Johnny Smith over here, and I hope he's got a new good. I hope the line's good. And then you come in here for 2 days, you work the existing vendors, and you fly back home because boy, the hotels are expensive, and so we're eating out. So I got to go home right away. And you don't look for newness. One of the most important jobs that you have at this show is you spend an entire day looking for new stuff, new vendors, new looks, new ideas. Think outside your 4 walls because you live outside your 4 walls. How about your category structure? Tracking information by category is a principle of retail. But maybe you should think about starting to break out categories like tops. If you have a category like tops, well, that could be this, that could be sweaters, that could be blouses, that could be so many things. And some may be turning so fast that you don't know that you're always missing out on revenue. Think about breaking out classifications and think about adding new classifications that won't cannibalize the rest of the store. Keeping your store interesting. And by the way, who are your top 50 customers? You know, the average boutique, if you really look at it, only has really 50 good customers. That's about it. Everybody else is kind of walks in and walks out. So what are you doing for the 50? Are you going out of your way to do things for them? We had a client that actually started sending out vouchers, and she changed her return policy to one that she had the stores for 18 years, and she said, I'm changing my return policy. Anything that you bought from me over the last 18 years, you can bring it back. I go, what, is she nuts? Right? But not full price. That could have been a dress that was a $400 dress that the woman wore a bunch of times, and she was going to take it to a secondhand store or maybe Goodwill, but it was still in her closet. She goes, wow, okay, I get a 20% voucher. So I'll get a voucher for $80 and I'll come in and buy something new. She was overrun by business. And by the way, if vouchers or coupons will generally double the amount your good customers will generally spend with you. If you have a customer that'll come in and spend $200, if you give them a $30 voucher or whatever, they'll spend $400 because that's the concept of the deal. Where you be in 3 years? Are you rotating your inventory accurately? Do you measure this? Do you measure how fast you turn? We talked about turn, remember? What was the metric? Divide your sales by 5, retail inventory, divide that by 2, cost inventory. Where do you stand? If you have a lot more than that, you're not rotating. The biggest problem you have is the customers aren't seeing enough new. They're seeing too much of the old, the same thing. So do you have too much? Do you have too little? Are you measuring this? This is really, really critical. And how about making mistakes? When you make a mistake, admit it. If something's been in your store for more than 10 weeks, I've got a secret for you. You're not going to sell it at full price. So you might as well do something right now and get the money back right now, and don't be concerned about margin, be concerned about cash. Forget about the margin at that point. Doesn't matter. I want my money back, and I want it back now. I want to free up space in my store to bring in new items that will entice my customers and keep them coming in more often, because the power of new is everything. Why do you think the average boutique in North America, your average customer comes in 4 to 5 times a year, and at Zara, their average customer, comes in 17 times a year? Why do you think that's the case? Because Zara has nothing in their stores more than 6 weeks old. And within the 6 weeks in a Zara store, they're moving the merchandise around on top of that to make it seem new and fresh and different. Why do you think Zara is the #1 fashion retailer in the world? Because of this. They're always showing you, and they never repeat styles. Ever. Because they feel like once it's gone, and you missed out. Too bad for you. Because what is scarce becomes attractive. Scarcity is a very, very important concept in retail. You know, product sameness is really the death of retail. Why do you think JCPenney and all these big box retailers, why do you think they're having problems? Because they're boring. It's the same stuff over and over again. It's not exciting to go into their stores. And if you are sellers of commodities, you have very little control over prices. The consumer has control over prices. So, one of my favorite stories is the beer goggle effect, right? Guys, you always know this story, right? You know, at the end of the night, when the bar's about to close, all the girls get a lot prettier. And by the way, it's the same with you girls too. All the guys get a lot more handsome, right? It's called the beer goggle effect. Well, why do you think this is? Believe it or not, researchers in Australia studied this. These people have too much time on their hands to start out with, but they actually studied this, and they found out that the beer goggle effect had nothing to do with beer or alcohol. It had nothing to do with that. What it had to do with is this, the scarcity principle. When there's less of something and you know you've got a shorter time to get it, it becomes more attractive. That's just psychology. And that's what that was about. The scarcity principle. When our options are scarce, what is available becomes more attractive. That's why you see lots of companies on their website or in the store go, we only have one left in the warehouse. Someone else expressed interest in this house today. Call now, available only while supplies last, only 3 left at this price. Why do you think they do that? Because they're reinforcing it's going to be gone soon. And you have to act if you're going to buy it. This is a concept that works beautifully if you try it. The scarcity principle is critical. Buy now or cry later. Have the illusion of scarcity. You know what the hamster mindset is? You want all your customers to be in the hamster mindset, which is essentially they're gonna buy now, even though they're not gonna wear it now. Get it all now before the season starts. That's what you want. You want that kind of impulsiveness in their purchases. And you want to add new products every week of the month and every month of the year. Always new, but in the right quantities. Because you got to pay for it. You got to coordinate that. By the way, that's what we do for our clients. And everything else you do, is to be simple. Because clutter shuts down the consumer senses. Simplicity in the way your store looks, in your displays, everything. Because there was a book out quite a few years ago by Barry Schwartz called The Paradox of Choice. And there's been studies done after this, and it has proven, I think, definitively, that if you give the consumer too many things to pick, they can't pick. You have to cull down your selection and not give them too many choices. I know that for a fact because when my 2 youngest daughters were little, I would torture them by taking them to Baskin & Robbins with 80 flavors of ice cream, and it would take them 3 hours to pick a flavor. And I often wondered, why is it so bad? See, the same thing here. I'd go, why is it taking so long? You know what their response was? From the mouth of babes. Well, Dad, I'm always afraid when I pick one, it won't be the right one. And that, I think, was really good. So cull down your selection, because the journey is you've got to be prepared to fail. You never learn anything until you fail at something. Failing is positive. Failing is good. You have to learn from it, but be prepared to fail. Be prepared to fall down. And every goal has to be measured. Excuses cannot be measured. Reasons can be measured. What's an excuse and what's a reason? You go back to your store, and you ask your manager, well, how was business? I was gone 3 days. Oh, not so good. Why was it bad? Well, there's not a lot of traffic right now, and it was raining, or we had a snowstorm, or, just nobody comes down to this end of the mall. Those are excuses. Ask the mall cop what the reason is. He'll tell you. Everybody comes in your store while you're gone, nobody was greeted. Didn't even say hi to me. Ignored him. That's a reason, not an excuse. You build your business going forward over the next 3 years and use reasons, not excuses, on everything you do. Because Dwight D. Eisenhower said this, it's not the dog in the fight, it's the fight in the dog. And that is really, really important. Don't give up. How much fight do you have? Are you willing to learn, to grow, to be better, to really make money at this? Because quite frankly, guys, you're in the greatest business of all time. This is a fun business. You're selling fashion. You're your own boss. You call the shots. You can take a vacation when you want to. You can make enough money like that woman with this kitchen. She can send all her kids to college without having to take any loans if she just gets smarter. This is all in your control to have the greatest life possible. Thank you, everybody. That's the end of the presentation. We will do a free inventory analysis. If you put in, we'll offer that to you. We'll contact you if you get your card. We won't bug you. Give everybody in the back there your business card, or myself if you haven't checked in online. Thank you, everybody. You guys are an awesome audience.